Super Mario Bros. 2 is a weird game. In fact, it wasn't even Super Mario Bros. 2 to begin with. What we know as the Lost Levels was originally Super Mario Bros. 2, and Japanese still consider it as such. We know why the game wasn't released outside of Japan for 7 whole years. It was crazy difficult and it was too similar to the original game. So what was Nintendo supposed to do? They already made a sequel, but it got rejected. Fast forward to 1987, Nintendo developed and released a game called Doki Doki Panic, and they took this Japanese-only game and Mario-ified it. And the game that we have, which we call Super Mario Bros. 2 outside of Japan, is not a game where you stomp enemies and collect coins and power-ups, but a game where you pick up enemies, throw them at other enemies, pluck vegetables from the ground, throw them at enemies, and climb up beanstalks. Anyway, I think I might be getting ahead of myself. So let's talk about the game a bit more, starting with the story. One evening, Mario had a strange dream. He dreamt of a long stairway leading up to a door. As soon as the door opened, he was confronted with a world he had never seen before, spreading out as far as his eyes could see. When he strained his ears to listen, he heard a faint voice saying, "Welcome to Subcon, the land of dreams. We have been cursed by Wart, and we are completely under his evil spell. We have been awaiting your arrival. Please defeat Wart and return Subcon to its natural state. The curse Wart has put on you in the real world will not have any effect upon you here. Remember, Wart hates vegetables. Please help us." At the same time this was heard, a bolt of lightning flashed before Mario's eyes. Stunned, Mario lost his footing and tumbled upside down. He awoke with a start to find himself sitting up in his bed. To clear his head, Mario talked to Luigi, Toad, and Princess about the strange dream he had. They decided to go to a nearby mountain for a picnic. After arriving at the picnic area and looking at the scenery, they see a small cave nearby. When they enter this cave, to their great surprise, there's a stairway leading up, up, and up. It is exactly like the one Mario saw in his dream. They all walk together up the stairs. At the top, find a door just like the one in Mario's dream. When Mario and his friends, in fear, open the door, to their surprise, the world that he saw in his dream spreads out before him. That's actually my first time reading the story in the instruction manual. Surprisingly, it leaves out the detail that Luigi, Toad, and Princess Toadstool had the same dream as Mario did. The title screen also gives a synopsis on the story before starting the game, just so you can have a bare bones yet simple idea of what the story is about. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, SMB2 is very different from SMB. The land of Subcon is full of characters we haven't seen before, and even introduces future Mario stables like Shy Guy, Birdo, Bob-omb, and Pokey. Instead of neutralizing enemies by jumping on their heads, hitting them from underneath blocks, or shooting fireballs at them, players have to either pluck vegetables from the ground or pick up enemies and throw them at other enemies. In this game, you can choose to play as Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Princess Peach. Each character has different abilities and traits that are measured in power, speed, and jump via a star stat system. When people first play the game, Mario is typically going to be the first character they choose, and Nintendo knew that, so they made him a character that has no major strengths or weaknesses, but a character that's just right for getting into the game. Luigi is a little weaker and a little slower than Mario, but he has the highest jump overall. He's also the most floaty, which is indicated by his fluttery mid-air animation. This can help skip over some platforming in both vertical and horizontal sections, but this presents a major flaw that I will bring more attention to when I talk about the bosses. Toad is the strongest and the fastest character, which makes him great for speedrunning and bosses overall, since he can pluck and pick up things with relative ease, but he also has the shortest jump of all, which means that he has to rely on super jump more than anyone else. Princess Peach can jump higher than Toad and has the ability to float in midair for a short period of time, which means she can make a lot of long jumps that the others can't, but she is the weakest and the slowest overall. It must be the dress. It's gotta be the dress. This game has a mixture of horizontal and vertical platforming. The horizontal platforming can range from free-flowing to strict. At some points you can play these sections how you want. You can take your time and take out all the enemies, pluck all the vegetables until you find red shells, bombs, bombs, or a magic potion that contains a door that leads to a subspace where you can find a mushroom that increases your health. Collect cherries to obtain a Starman, which lasts half the amount of time it did in Super Mario Bros., or just race to the end. On the other hand, the game restricts how you play by putting you in sections where you have to demolish walls underground while sniffers stone your face in, or the game will force you to ride on top of an albatross. Sorry, I mean albatross, over a bottomless pit. Both Luigi's and Peach's airtime can really come in handy in situations like that, but you don't really know what certain characters are going to be great for what levels, which we'll talk more about later on. There's one very specific level where you have to tiresomely investigate a bunch of jars until you find the one that has the key to the door you need to unlock to get to the end of the level, while dealing with a bunch of Cobrats that pop out with an unavoidably cheap sneak attack because you had the gall to move the stool that was in the way to find out that the key wasn't even in there in the first place. Yeah, screw this level. World 6-1 absolutely sucks. One of the worst, if not the worst, level in the game. And it is specifically and especially because of this stupid jar section. Anyway, vertical platforming is something that's new to Super Mario. It typically involves platforming to the top or bottom of a tower, and even involves climbing to the top to collect a key and then race back down to the same tower to get to the locked door with the key to it, while being chased by a Phanto, which can make platforming easily tedious, especially if you play as Peach or especially Toad, who have the shortest jumps. Sometimes you'll have falling sections where you have to be ready for spikes. Other times you find yourself digging through the ground until you reach the bottom of the section, which by the way is an instance where you do not want to be Luigi. But again, if you haven't played this game before, how are you supposed to know that? The examples I mentioned make the vertical sections easily my least favorite part of the game, which is too bad because it makes up more than half the game. I will say that climbing to the top can be very easy for Luigi since he has the highest jump, which means that he could skip over some platforms. Just keep in mind that Luigi falls slow, and it could be a potential issue depending on the player. Let's talk about the bosses. As usual, there's a boss at the end of each world, but the first two levels of a world have a minor boss, which is Birdo. The major bosses are listed in order of appearance: Mauser, who appears in World 1 and 3, Triclite, who appears in World 2 and 6, Fry Guy, who appears in World 4, Claw Grip, who appears in World 5, and finally Wart, the main villain, who appears in World 7. I don't have much to say for most of these bosses. They're all pretty straightforward and they're not bad. The only thing I really have to worry about is which character to use. Mario and Toad are automatically the best for bosses since they're the strongest and fastest, which means that since they pick up items faster, they can evade bosses easier. Luigi is the slowest faller, so it takes him longer to get on the ground after picking up an item. And in the case of latter versions of Birdo, where she spits out fireballs instead of eggs in more rapid succession, and considering that you have to jump on top of an egg to grab it, it makes bosses more difficult when you play as Luigi since he has the slowest recovery time. And I forgot to mention Luigi's poor traction, which is not lost here. Lastly, Peach is the weakest character, so she takes longer to lift items in general, which debatably makes her recovery time worse because she takes a long time to pick up the item, even though she falls faster than Luigi. It would be nice if you could switch characters according to specific sections of levels, but the original NES version doesn't even let you switch characters after you die, which means you could only switch characters after finishing a level. You have to play the game, or at least levels, more than once in order to decide which character is best for which level. I don't know about you, but I don't enjoy this game so much to replay it a second time, even though I ended up playing the game twice for this video, once for the NES version and another for the All-Stars version, similarly to my previous Super Mario retrospectives. Although I've been playing this game since I was younger, I don't think I ever looked at Super Mario Bros. 2 and thought it was a great game. I probably thought it was a great game as a kid because that's what I had back then, but then I got introduced to other Mario games and thought they were just a whole lot better. It's not a favorite of mine, in fact, it might be one of my least favorite Super Mario games. Not necessarily because it's different, but just because I really just enjoy this game less than others. Or I could be lying to myself and say that it's a lot to do with the game being too different, and I'd much rather play an actual Mario game. Which could potentially be a controversial statement because people consider this a real Mario game. Which I'm not saying that this is not a Mario game. It just doesn't have the core gameplay foundation that the original Super Mario Bros. Laid. The game sadly gets less fun each time I play it, which I hate to say as a big Mario fan, and the fact that this is one of my first Mario games. I will say this about the game just so I can add a little bit of positivity to it. The game control is really good. I like how it feels. It actually feels really good. It feels a lot better than the original game. It's definitely a step up. It's definitely an improvement when it comes to momentum and how it feels to play the game. They even added the ability to run in the game so that it would feel more like Super Mario Bros., as Doki Doki Panic didn't even have a run button. And honestly, come to think of it, I think really the only thing that kind of brings this game down a little bit for me is just the level design. I'm just not too big of a fan of the level design. That's probably the reason why this is one of my least favorite Super Mario games. There's just a lot of level design choices that I really didn't like. You could tell because I pointed out one of the worst levels in the game earlier. Maybe I'm just not used to the pace being broken in Mario games. Maybe I'm just used to how free-flowing most of the 2D games are. I apologize if I offended any fans of this game, because that obviously wasn't my intention. If you enjoy this game or even consider it your favorite Mario game, then that's awesome. You know, it's funny, they say that The Lost Levels feels less like a sequel and more like a DLC or a ROM hack. I'd say that Super Mario Bros. 2 feels more like a non-Mario game with Mario in it. After all, it was all just a dream, and a dream that Mario had. As always, it was nice to revisit this game after so long, and it won't be the last time I play it. Maybe one day I'll play this game and suddenly it becomes one of my favorite games ever made. Only time will tell. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this retrospective. And I will see you next time. God bless.